I guess the future, at least for the coming years, is in Iran, and this is where all the investors and all the companies are just fighting to get new market shares.
Okay, so Francois, the finance minister of the UAE has said we are diversifying the sources of energy. We are diversifying the sources of income. But is it too little too late?
As often for many of the oil producers and commodity producers in general, when money is flowing in, they don't do much. Now, clearly, as many other countries, there is a huge pressure on the prices. So they are diversifying for a while already, but actually we should say some are diversifying because it's not one country, it is 7 Emirates, and clearly Dubai has little oil, but they are diversifying in their way. 85% of the oil in the UAE depends on Abu Dhabi. So they're trying to diversify. Of course, they have that new pipeline now to avoid the Hormuz Strait and to avoid the risk of an Iranian crisis. And then the pipeline goes directly to the Indian Ocean to that new terminal that opened about a year ago. So there is some kind of diversification, but it's quite difficult. And many other countries are like that, by the way, not only the UAE.
Indeed. Now, if we do look at Saudi Arabia, they are being largely blamed for, the continual fall in oil prices, which we have seen. However, they say the rest of the world has introduced 2.7 billion barrels of additional capacity, and that is what has flooded the markets. Now, was it down to OPEC to intervene, do you think?
Well, the problem is the following. Saudi Arabia has huge reserves, so they can afford a low oil price, although it's costing them, because to balance their budget, they will need $80, $85 a barrel. We even read sometimes larger numbers. Now, for other countries, it's a nightmare. Algeria made a budget based on $50 a barrel, and they're just one example out of many. So some are obliged at that price to produce more if they just want to balance a little bit. Now, Saudi Arabia has a choice that others don't have, and we know that behind the Saudi Arabia oil price there is the idea of pushing the American out of the market, which they are succeeding in doing so, and they also want not to help the Iranians. So that's what is the motivation behind the Saudis. But others have to try to balance their budget.
Indeed, it seems as though there has to be some sort of plan B somewhere. But Middle Eastern stocks were mixed following the news that OPEC may be set to intervene, ready to act finally. Mixed, I do say, but do you think it's just a wee bit too early for euphoria?
There's definitely not euphoria. I mean, look at the price of the oil, although yesterday it went up again, but we went below $30. So people tend to, take any sign. Now, this is the index of the Saudi market, and you see that, roughly speaking, I think that is a 10 years graph, but roughly speaking, it's not, going up. And for all these countries, they just need the oil price to be higher to see some real improvement in the economy. GDP is expected to be 1.2% in Saudi this year. It's not very much for them.
No, not at all. But there is some notion that never let a crisis, get in the way of opportunity. This may be an unprecedented opportunity for the region to reform. What do you think is next for this area? Well,
the problem is the opportunity nowadays is Iran. And the world knows that. And Iran is, we have 85 million people in that country. You have a lot of possible investment. This is the largest new market since the fall of the Berlin Wall. So these are where the opportunities are. And that is driving the center of that market from Saudi to Iran. And that is creating tensions, and we can see those tensions. In past interviews, we discussed that. We have clearly the religion aspects in the balance, but there is also the economical power. And I guess the future, at least for the coming years, is in Iran, and this is where all the investors and all the companies are just fighting to get new market shares.
Indeed. Well, Francois, as we said, the future remains unknown, but look forward to chatting it through with you again in the future sometime, I'm sure. Thank you for coming in today and sharing your thoughts with us, though. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Okay, well that's all from Francois and myself, but you can catch up with all of the week's big stories with the weekly wrap-up here on Dukascopy TV. Goodbye for now.